return to office. We have seen this order that came out last week with Governor Tim Walz ordering that those who are working remotely for the state government and state offices have to return to work June 1st. And, this follows suit with a lot of places, a lot of companies that are asking their employees to come back to the office. Certainly the federal government, we saw that too with a return to office order. And this has come up quickly against some pushback here, especially from the unions. There's complaints here about people having to get child care, people having to get another car. And it's not that issue so much as could they have had more time to plan for this? So we've got, let's see, Ryan, we're going to our guest now. We ready to go on that? We're ready. All right. Well, let's go. State Representative Jim Nash, who is Republican from Waconia, I believe, and you are the chair of the state government. Pardon me, I've got my notes here. Now I'm trying to find it again. Tell us what you're on a number of committees, but you're the chair of which one?
The chair of State Government Finance and Policy.
So how much then does this issue come into your purview as part of that committee?
Well, the Department of Administration that regulates and works on the parking and building maintenance and management does come completely under the State Government Finance Committee. So I would say a lot. Yeah.
So then how much of this, between now and June 1st, how much of this will come in front of your committee and your purview as you try to navigate here some of these complications that have arisen?
Well, this is a decision that the governor has made, and he's the chief executive. So I don't believe that this is going to come before the committee as a bill. We might give it an informational hearing just to hear what their plan is. But here's the most notable stuff that your viewers should understand. So in 2022, there was a strategic facilities plan done by the state of Minnesota for the Department of Administration, and the results put out there that with the people who are working remotely and the balance of buildings that were going to be no longer rented outside of the campus, with people being brought in eventually, that space was going to become quite limited. An extra wrinkle happened when the state office building, the Ford building, were both, one was knocked down, one is under construction right now, and then another parking spot that was in the old Sears complex is no longer being leased. Well, that problem is that there's no longer 800 parking spaces, and parking on campus is going to become quite challenging for the people who are being ordered to return to work.
So 800 fewer parking spaces, how much less office space then, desk space actually, for the number of employees that we expect to come back?
Yeah, great question. So that strategic plan once again looked at, if you shrink these spaces down and there must be a lot of cubicles that are going to be heading the way in these buildings, but that there was going to be enough space to bring the people who were already planned to bring in. So those were the people in outside buildings that were being rented. There was never really a conversation around how many people that work remotely, period, were going to be brought back in. So that was not part of the strategic plan. So I think that there's a great many concerns, and the governor got out over his skis on this one, and he's going to have to figure this out.
How long had this been, I know this has been talked about at the Capitol for a while, so this was, had been gestating for a while, but how much advance notice did you get before the governor announced this?
Well, I learned about it when the press picked it up, so I didn't know any sooner than you all did. It was announced, and then everybody began asking questions. Some people began commenting on it quite angrily, and from my perspective, people who work for the state should be working in the state buildings, but that's not how it's working out right now. I think that you've got a fair number of people in different departments and different agencies that are working remotely, and as you said on the intro, there are people who have made decisions on where they live, the types of vehicles they drive or don't have, daycare, and a bunch of other things that the governor didn't seem to really consider when he was making this order. And those are things I think that are going to come back to cause great many problems for the governor.
So in your viewpoint, gleaning from this, you don't necessarily disagree with this move. You disagree with how it came to be without more advance notice for people to try to figure out their personal lives, but also for the state government to figure out office and parking space.
I think that's a fair comment. I certainly understand that there is a remote work component that does benefit the state, does benefit individuals, but to the extent that it's been used as much as it has, I think that your average lawmaker probably would be saying these are things that that we need to have. These are people that we need to have at the Capitol. We've all been in that work environment where the collegiality really elevates idea making and sharing and so on. But the bigger picture is that if you read the 2022 strategic plan and then you begin looking at the parking issues, I don't know where these people are going to park or office, and I don't know that the governor may have been thinking down the lines of those very salient details.
So what happens now then? I mean, obviously, we've got a little bit of time before June 1st rolls around, but it's 2 months from now. So what do you do between now and then to try to iron out some of these, not only the objections from the two big state unions, but just the actual physical issue of workspace and parking space? What do you do?
Well, I think that the governor is hearing on a daily basis from the different unions, from individual workers. I think there was a press conference put on by DFL legislators that were saying that this was a bad decision that the governor made. So he's going to have to reconcile that first and foremost. If June 1st comes and the order is still in place, then the Department of Administration is going to have a lot of late nights trying to figure out where are they going to put people. And there's a disparity as to the types of buildings that are available. The House of Representatives used to be in the state office building. That's now being renovated and under construction. So we now occupy the Centennial office building. Here's the bigger picture down the road is the Centennial office building has been slated for demolition. So now you take out of play what could be a building that houses, I think, 1,000 people at its highest point in the years past. So you begin taking things out of play again. What happens down the road?
And let's go back to this, the leases that were terminated because they were unused because of the number of people working remotely. Was there never thought then given when those leases were terminated that we may come back to this position and need that space? What was there not that sort of foresight?
Yeah, well, that's a great question that I would say that you all should ask the governor. But the leased buildings are off the campus. So they are in downtown St. Paul. And I think that this is speculation, but I know that the governor has been meeting with Mayor Melvin Carter, and there's been a pronounced ask to bring people back to St. Paul to maybe rejuvenate some of the activity economically in downtown St. Paul. So I think there may be a play there, but the leased spaces that you just asked about, those are buildings that the state does not own and are outside of the campus that the Capitol area complex.
So if presumably, and we know that there is some available space in downtown St. Paul, as you mentioned, and a concerted effort to try to get downtown repopulated. There's been some restaurant closures, et cetera. So do you think maybe that's sort of kind of the nebulous part of this is that maybe they're thinking, well, if they were off campus to begin with, they can be off campus again, and there's plenty of space available?
Again, that's a really good question. And I do think that Mayor Carter and the governor have been chatting and trying to come up with a way to rejuvenate downtown St. Paul. I know that, I think it was last week that Lund's Byerly's closed their store in downtown St. Paul. There's lots of available commercial space, but in the core center of all this, I think that my perspective, and certainly many that I am in caucus with, believe that the buildings that are on the state campus should be full, that we should have every space occupied. So we're not necessarily in disagreement with the effort, but I think that the governor has made some fairly clumsy moves and got out over his skis, because the plan that came out in 22 clearly states that space is going to be at a premium. And then the additional thing that I brought up earlier on was that we're 800 parking spaces down. Well, that's a lot of spaces that you're going to have to figure out, and I don't know how they're going to do that.
That's a lot. Well, potentially this might be postponed. We'll see. We'll see what happens as we get towards June 1st. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate your time today. It's good to talk.
Thanks for having me on. Have a great
ongoing conversation.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to come back and chat with you as we learn more.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All
Take
right.
care.
Have a good Monday.